Can you explain to my viewers and listeners what it means to recover out loud and why it is so important to own that struggle, breaking down those barriers of pride and sort of stepping out of your comfort zone?
Absolutely. I'm Jewish, and there is a Kabbalistic saying in the Jewish faith called Tikkun Olam. It means changing the world with acts of kindness. And what for recovering out loud for me means that I can change my little part of the world one story at a time. And I get messages of hope, and that's all I'm trying to instill, hope, because everyone has a different path. So I get messages all the time from people who say, you've given me hope. That doesn't mean they're ready for recovery. That doesn't mean recovery is a straight line from them. But with hope means that you might take that step, because Jennifer, there is only one thing required to recover from addiction. I ask people what that is and say, you have to want it. You have this, that. No, be alive. Stay alive, because that is the only prerequisite to recovering and finding your best life.
I've noticed that's a trend now in Hollywood. Like, have you heard of this term, like California sober, where you'll smoke weed, but you won't drink? But a lot of people are up in arms about that, saying, well, that's not real sobriety.
Yeah, well, I'm not a gatekeeper of recovery. Who is it for me to say what sobriety looks like for anyone, right? If you go to the SAMHSA, the government agency definition of recovery, it says nothing about sobriety.
It can't be defined.
It talks about all the pillars of living your best life.
I love that.
I get home and no one's home and it's funeral quiet. I walk down these wooden stairs to our basement, and the stairs creaked. And my mom still lives in the house today. The stairs creaked as I walked down to the basement. And with every creak, Jennifer, I felt like the whole world knew my shame, that I didn't know how to stand up to bullies, that I was this fat pig who would never be accepted.
I wish I could hug that Brian Cuban back then.
Yeah, I wish and I do in therapy. I hug that Brian Cuban in therapy, but to let him know it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
But I felt like my brothers knew, my mom knew, my dad knew. And so I decided that no one would ever know. And I took those pants and I buried them in a wastebasket, hoping that would bury my shame. But that's not how trauma works. I'll tell you something. An overblown need for acceptance can be as powerful as a line of cocaine.
Wow.
And causing destructive behavior and unkind behavior.
That is so true. Caring about the opinions of others and sort of seeking that sort of validation. That is one thing that I learned in my own personal journey of reinvention, is the importance of autonomy and having a sense of self and purpose, right? And not letting society or the press write your story or that narrative for you.
My brother saved my life. I was going to put a gun in my mouth. I mean, let's be real here. My brother saved my life. Mark, as a person, has had no bad impact on my recovery. None of this. My responsibility for recovery, my identity rests with me, not with him or anyone else. He lived his life. He's living his best life, right? What happened, Jennifer? Yeah, what happened was that I had, during the time when Mark became internationally famous, was when I was going through my worst times in drug addiction. You're right, it all happened before him. He didn't cause any of it. I mean, his fame didn't cause any of this. But what happened was I was such an empty shell, and I hated myself so much, and had such a void in my stomach of self-respect that in my mind, it made perfect sense that I could be Mark Cuban's brother, and I could date girls half my age, and those relationships always revolved around drugs, always. Mm-hmm. I could go into any nightclub I wanted in Dallas, just walk right in, through the line, get bottle service, get free cocaine, this and that. Oh, and yeah, being Mark Cuban's brother sounds pretty good for that Brian Cuban, right?
Right. Yeah.
For that Brian Cuban. And because I had no identity, that made perfect sense to me, name fame, that I could utilize my name fame and prop myself up so I didn't have to look inward and see what I hated, which was myself.
Over the holiday season, if you're traveling and if anyone out there is looking for a good read, if you're socially isolating and you just want to curl up with a good book, Brian Cuban just happens to be, did you like that segue there? Brian Cuban just happens to be the author of the There it is, The Ambulance Chaser. It is a must-read legal thriller about murder, memory, and personal consequences. It sounds ominous, but you can't put it down. It is a roller coaster, my friends. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about the book and share where my viewers and listeners can purchase a copy.
Sure. The Ambulance Chaser is about a personal injury lawyer who finds himself accused of the murder of a high school classmate 30 years prior after her remains are discovered in a vacant lot. He is charged with her murder and he flees, becoming a fugitive from justice to find the one person who can prove his innocence and also save his abducted son. I'm very excited about it. It is my debut novel. It has already sold thousands in pre-order, and it launches and it's launched, right? And it's launched.
It's launched.
Yes.
People can go. How can people purchase on Amazon? Where do they go?
You can find it on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, at indie bookstores. If they don't have it, ask for it. And you can also find different places at authorbriancuban.com.
It is so great. So get it for your holiday gifts this season.
Dude, great stocking stuffer. It's a little bigger. You might have to stuff it in there.
It needs to be a really extra thick, big stocking.
Your stocking will look like a snake that swallowed something, but get it in there.
But I promise it is worth it.